Hey Soul Babes, welcome to the Essence Podcast. I'm your host, Riss, and I am so excited to be back here for a season 2 of Essence Podcast. For those of you who have been here since season 1, since day 1, I send you a big energetic hug because I have received so much support. I have even my grandma asking me when's my next episode coming out, that I am so happy to be here. I'm happy to be sending so much positivity, so much love and awareness out there to the collective just by sharing what it takes and what it feels like to be in your essence, and using holistic tools as well as spirituality and creativity to enhance the lives of many. I am excited for what's to come because we are going to go deeper and more authentically into what being in your creativity and being in your essence takes, what it requires. And that is, of course, going along your healing journey, as well as freeing yourself from the fears and doubts that accumulate over time. Because, sometimes when we go through a wind of passion and we feel this vitality, and then something falls down and crumbles and it doesn't turn out the way we wanted it to be, we sometimes get afraid to get back up again and try again. So there's going to be so much to unravel and to unpack here. But I just kind of want to get on here as episode 1 to just share more of what's gone down around this part of town. What happened to Riss? Like, what happened during the hibernation stage?
In your divine essence you shine. In your divine essence you thrive. I'm your host Riss, and you're listening to Essence Podcast.
It's funny because during the ending of season 1, after finishing the last few episodes, I was ready for season 2 off the bat. Like, I was ready to go right back into work, into creating, but things were not working out. It was a time of stop, pause, rest. It was winter, at the end of December coming into January, it was in the middle of winter. And at that time, it's hibernation season. It's like you see the squirrelies and you see the bears. Everyone is going into hibernation. They want to sleep more than they want to play. And that's essentially what human beings are to follow, in a sense. Obviously we can't go off the charts all the way, but there's more sleeping than there is playing and being outside because it's too damn cold as well, So it's that type of aesthetic what's going on here. I also, because I was okay, I want to push season 2 to come out sooner than later, I bought a whole new background of things. I went to Home Goods and I bought these cute little ornaments and different trinkets to put as my background, and didn't really end up obviously using any of it. It's stuff I already have. It's stuff I made, and just repurposing it and making it more simple, more earthy, more my essence. And during that time, because I was also trying to record some episodes, I was sort of ignoring that intuitive voice. I was like, okay, it's hibernation. I kept saying that. I kept feeling that I wasn't actually having any juice, any power to continue to talk or express anything in a creative way or to give any type of inspiration. It all was just falling flat. But on top of that, I was falling asleep while recording. And in those moments, I was like, okay, I get it. I need to surrender to winter, surrender to this hibernation moment of the fact that my creative well is dry right now. I need to nourish it with life. And life will feed us. Life will feed us all types of things. And just to share what type of feeding things I was taking in that life was giving me, I just want to touch base on a few things that I've experienced during this transformation time, this reflection time, starting with January. In January, I witnessed the fires go on here in LA. I live in LA, and through my front window and my back window in my house, I was seeing the fires. I was in the collective consciousness of feeling anxiety, feeling these fears and sadness for the community. And during that time, I was also a barista. I took on a job to be a barista, and I was able for 3 months being able to fulfill that dream of mine. Technically like 2 months, 2 months and a half. And that fell short too. There was just different things in my life that I was trying out just to keep on doing. But Spirit continued to show me that this doing of like me making the effort was good and it's okay, but that's not what Spirit is asking. And Spirit was asking to surrender a lot of the times, you know. And even in that moment with the fires, it was that moment to surrender to what is happening. Because as an empath, as an intuitive healer, and someone that is constantly open and feeling things, it was a practice of needing to switch that around, switcheroo, you know, like actually feel grounded and put the force field on and send the love out and hone in to the Capricorn side of me, pretty much, of just feeling that stability, because I am so blessed that my home was not affected by the fires, but even just the collective had their soul cracked open during these times. And the beautiful silver lining of out of this and throughout any type of disaster is the community is coming together, is feeling the sympathy and the empathy for each other. It's that connectiveness that comes out of this. And through those two dynamics, I was able to really learn how to not absorb, but to observe, but also to project that outwards of compassion, of being a stable anchor towards other people in my life. So anyways, January was just mostly about that. It was about this reflectiveness of like being able to just be that observer and to work on things that I wasn't really aware of. Because at the end of the day, I would, you know, being a Capricorn, my focus is on like, okay, how can I be of service? How can I make these projects come alive? How can I just be a worker, you know, and focusing on career. But it's not only about that. It's also about the community. It's also about the friendships. It's about the family dynamics, and everything is intertwined as one. If we are lacking in some part of our lives, then, or not letting that part of that life get fed, then we are pretty much overfeeding the other side of ourselves, and it's not in a healthy way. You know, there has to be a balance between everything in our life. And so the beautiful thing that came out of January at the end was that I went to Disneyland. That was so fun. They have a sale going on of like, you get like 3 days here in SoCal. And so I'm going again. I'm going to Disneyland again. And Disneyland honestly feeds me, because it's this part of me that gets to revive itself with like just play and fun and drinks and all that good stuff. So anyways, other than that, February was a bit more of that, again, that hibernation, going inward and inward. I was really going in, but at the same time, it's like slowly putting in that progression to where I wanted it to go, like reflecting on like, okay, I actually want to write a book, and honing down into being an author. It felt so weird saying author, or it felt so weird telling people I'm writing, I'll call you back. Like setting aside time for my creativity and saying those words felt so weird, but now I'm getting used to it. In March, it was sort of that same thing, feeding more of like, not feeding, but more so tweaking some of the things that I was wrapped around, what was working for me, what isn't, you know, and reflecting on that aspect of my life. Now coming into April, I've definitely been able to see a shift. So once pretty much the spring equinox hit, it was like, it's spring. There's life being able to breathe. There's things being able to move and dance. And I don't know if you're feeling this way too, but that is essentially what spring is about, and what it could feel like is this idea that this is like spring to me is like the actual new year. It's the new year of 2025 finally. You know, we get to enjoy 2025 in this time space and be able to let go and reflect on what 2024 had to offer. And in 2025, we have this place of, in numerology, it adds up to 9. So 9 is about like almost to completion. You know, it's almost to the finish line. And then when we hit like 10, which would be next year, it's this full circle moment of like wisdom. Like, yo, I have all the tools I need and my back is in pain, but I feel like I've triumphant, hopefully, through this cycle, that now I can move into this next one of learning something new or moving into something different. But, you know, of course, that cycle is different for everyone depending on our growth and our evolution. But however, this is ideally where it's at. It's like some of the things like we've been sitting on forever is finally getting more and more of that clarity. You know, it's not fully the big picture, but it's enough to know like, there's something in my life I'm able to see more clearly. And that's essentially what I've already been receiving just from moving out of 2024, now entering 2025 with just more of that sense of direction and being able to reap some of those rewards. And it's funny, I'm going to just be very transparent with you. Again, because I'm a Capricorn, a lot of what I was focusing on was like, okay, the service, like, is it projected right? Are people receiving this correctly? You know, how can I maneuver to get my audience to understand me and, you know, lowering my benchmark so I can, you know, be like, this is A, B, C, D, but within like the universal spirituality world and in creativity. And then coming to realize like, first and foremost, that's creativity isn't like A, B, C, D. It's like all over the place. It's not even in order. It's like creativity just flows however it wants to go. And it's our masculine, our structure mind that puts it into order. Last year was more of that playfulness. And my mind was wrapped around making it structured, making it solidify, making this my lifestyle, my career. And now just coming back to these realizations of it not being just like all structured, it's like even that play is still going to be just as loud as my structure. It was also this place of like, this isn't the only thing I'm feeding. It's not just the work and the like career. It's also the friendships and the family dynamics that need to be fed to. Just in April, in the beginning of April, at the end of March, I was able to go back home for a week. And I was a bit nervous, a little bit, but it was more of like, I need to be fed more than anything. But the nervousness of going back home was just a little bit there too. Because honestly, I didn't know what to expect. You know, I had ripped off my Band-Aid of myself, you know, showed myself to the world on social media and to my parents and, you know, to my dad and everyone that I was kind of scared of like, okay, well, they know me and we've already went through our trials of like our hardships together of, I know it shouldn't sound like a big deal, but at the time it really was of like, you are a woo-woo girl, like you are intuitive and you have this magicalness to you and you call yourself a witch and you're you know, using energy and you practice Buddhism and Hinduism. It was like a shock to the family. Once I was able to expose myself in that way, that it caused a lot of destruction and transformation within the relationship dynamic. But slowly within winter and even in Christmas time, I was able to adjust that with my dad and with my family and being able to, you know, slowly coming out of the closet per se. This is exactly where the Essence podcast is leading to, because it's really about coming out of the damn closet of just expressing yourself to everyone and whatever you like to do. And some people may not approve of it or may not like it at the moment, but those that love you are going to appreciate you and love you for you, not because of what you do, but because who you are. Because it comes down to, are you showing compassion? Are you showing love? Are you showing respect? And if you're doing all that to yourself, of course you're doing that to others. And that's essentially why your family will stick around and why your friends will stick around. And going back home, I was in this place of observation. I was observing and not absorbing, because at the same time, of course, the family and friends, like they're all still living their life and they are all their own unique, beautiful souls. They're all soul babes themselves, doing their own thing with their own beliefs and how they move about the world. And we can't ignore that. That is out of our control. It's the idea of like, how can I work with that? And that is through the observation of just observing. And that's essentially what I did a lot with my grandparents. My grandparents are at, an older age of experiencing the world. They've seen the US and Mexico, and, my roots go from like really highs and really lows. They've seen the world change, and that I can't like control, obviously, what they've seen, and it's out of my control to change them to see what I see, or to be in this place of accepting what is. That is their journey anyways. But what I witnessed was how they go about receiving the world and perceiving the world. For myself, when I wake up in the morning, I am not going first. I try not to go first, dive into social media. I actually do my best to reflect on myself and to see what's going on internally. A lot of the times during my transition, I did notice like I would wake up depressed. I would wake up sad because of just how much inner work I was doing. And even during that projection time of me ripping off that Band-Aid, coming out the closet, it was a very sad time. And I felt like I had to fight against that repression, because that's what depression is. It's like we are repressing the expressions that we want to portray outside. And it was that subconscious battle that I was working through. So since those time frames of my life, that has been like ideally how I wake up in the morning, of like, okay, how can I work through myself just to make sure that I am setting myself up for success, instead of, automatically being triggered to want to wake up depressed or wake up sad or wake up like, oh no, it's another day, So being more conscious of my thoughts and how I wake up, which then turns into meditating, writing, doing yoga, or walking my dog, or making breakfast. Like, it turns into actually being present. And that's essentially how I've trained myself to wake up in the mornings. And seeing my grandparents first thing in the morning, they're making breakfast for themselves, they're talking, but they're also watching the news. And the news is a place where it can take you down different rabbit holes. Like, it can help you focus on things outside of your control instead of what's in your control. And so just witnessing my grandparents just consume early in the morning left them in a place of thinking in a survival mindset, feeling, during this time of course, separation, and this government that is doing a whole 360 on what we expected it to go, or, some of us predicted it. And anyways, this is all just a reflection of of survival that's going out there, and my grandparents are consuming it. And it's almost like it's hyping them up for the idea that it's always been such a crazy world. But even back in my day, it was, a lot more like structured, and, things are changing. So it's like it hypes them up with survival of having to be them against the world. It was interesting because I trained myself even from January to just be an observer and not absorb so much. And it's honestly worked, because it's some of the things are not ours. I like to say it's not my monkey, not my circus. I like to say that when my boyfriend's telling me a problem or dilemma of a story that's from a coworker or a family member, and I'm like, I don't want to say I don't care, but I also don't want to pretend like I do care, So not my monkey, not my circus is what I say, because it's not it's not any of my business really to just go and have that gossipness be enhanced and oh my gosh, It's what can we do better? How can we just improve that and know that everyone suffers? Everyone literally has a bad day and a good day. How can we just improve that and actually have a better day, be content, and show compassion and love to one another? So that is essentially what the observing compared to the absorbing is about. All I want to do is just be, right? And being there felt like I was just being with my family and using that feminine power, that feminine energy of being, of just seeing what exists, because again, in that creative world, in the creative vortex, a portal, anything goes. Even what I'm perceiving from my family and friends, it's showing me that anything goes. Everything exists. Even every emotion that they're feeling or every problem that's popping up, whether, a problem obviously being bad, quote unquote, but even a solution being so positive, like that's all just a possibility in itself. During that time, it was just witnessing what is out there. The energy that we carry, it spreads around like wildfire, just as much as negativity does. Positivity is just as influential. It is just as powerful. It is just as potent as negative energy that surrounds and like suffocates a room. We can always brighten it up. It's just with that intention. It's with that feeling that we have that can raise a vibration, and not allowing our spongy self to absorb what's going on, but just to observe how the world looks, because we can't change everything. We can't fix everyone, and we can't, help every single person get out of what they're suffering from or get out of what's going on. But we can show compassion. We can show up for ourselves and for others just by being in our essence, just by being in our light. So that has been the journey thus far, and I am so excited to dive more into this, even just as life goes on, just as life takes its course, just where I'm at has shown me so much, but there's so much more to learn and so much more to grow and so much essence to tap into. So I am excited. I also am curious to know, I want to bring on people onto the Essence podcast. If you are interested in sharing your story of just tapping into your creative portal with me, I would love to have that be a communication with you and with the collective, to spread that awareness, because there is, as above, so below. There's these highs and there's these lows, and being that support team, that guide, and sharing just these intuitive talks with you inspires me. So I would even love you to be a guest on my podcast and chat with you and see just how deep we can go together and unravel some of the things that may be heavy with you. I am willing to hold the space, even if you are located in Los Angeles or if you're somewhere else. We can always Zoom. I've had plenty of people on my podcast that were not from LA, so we can make it work. But I would just love to test out the waters, and if you're called to it, just expand in that way what the Essence podcast has to offer. We all must come out of the closet. We all must shine and be boldly and true to ourselves. Well, thank you so much for being here, soul babes, and I will see you in the next one. But in the meantime, if you would like to follow me on Instagram or TikTok, it's at Essence of Riss, and you can find my podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and on YouTube. So stay tuned and reach out to me if you feel called. Bye, soul babes.